Hey everybody, I'm going to make this real brief video, sort of a micro lecture on some key topics I think from chapter 3, which is about entrepreneurship. We talk about new ventures and business ownership. What you want to take away from this is you want to be able to define what small business is, discuss its importance in the U.S. economy, explain the popularities of small business. You want to talk about be able to explain what entrepreneurship means and describe some key characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. Describe distinctive competence, the business plan, all the the pinnings of getting the business off the ground. We want to discuss trends in small business startups, the main reasons for success and failure among small businesses. And then we want to talk about the different types of business structures there are: sole proprietorships, partnerships, cooperatives. And we'll also talk about corporations, what corporate entities are. Those are all legal definitions of business. So I'm just going to hit on a couple of key points. One is, what is a small business? I always find this interesting because it's not, there's no universal definition of what a small business is. The SBA defines a small business as a size standard to each of these are codes that are set up for different types of businesses. For example, most manufacturing companies with 500 employees or fewer would be considered a small business, and most non-manufacturing business with average annual receipts under 7.5 million would also qualify as a small business. That's the Small Business Administration's view of it. The banking industry takes a little bit different view. They say small businesses are, sometimes they consider the number of employees, but typically they're looking at revenue size. And with about 75% pegging a small business as one with less than $10 million in revenue, and the rest using $20 million of sales as the threshold. So it just really depends on who's defining it. So there isn't a single definition of it. One thing I find kind of interesting is that there's a Goldman Sachs study. This is been done several times. It's sort of ongoing, and small businesses are more than 1/3 of them are engaged in research and development for a new product or service. I guess that shouldn't be too surprising, but that's was really kind of the impetus for wanting to actually do a startup. Nearly half are in the process of launching a new product or business or service, which makes sense, and about 2/3 are improving the quality of an existing product or service. In other words, most people that do startups, small businesses, have a clear idea of exactly what they're trying to do and why they're going to be successful. Now, this question gets asked a lot: what type of person are the best entrepreneurs? I can honestly tell you, I've never seen a definition I thought that was really inclusive. Lots of different types of people can become successful entrepreneurs. It's not, you don't have to be an extrovert, you don't have to be any particular thing. You just have to have the right mindset going into it. So I consider entrepreneurial characteristics. You have to be very resourceful. You really are a jack of all trades. You do a lot of different things. You have to have a very broad knowledge of business. There is some idea that there's a concern for the good personal customer relations. In other words, understanding the need and why your customers are important to you. Strong desire to be their own bosses. Although I can honestly tell you, even as an entrepreneur, you never feel like you're exactly your own boss. You just have to feel like you make more decisions. And then but this is really a key one, is the ability to deal with uncertainty and risk. I think that's a huge one because it is by definition I'm not going to say risky, but it can be a little bit challenging on a daily basis. And the challenges keep coming, and they're new, and they will challenge you. Okay. So there's lots of different ways to think about starting up a small business. One I want to talk about a little bit is franchising, because I think it's not very well understood necessarily. Franchising is a great way to start up a business because you're using a proven business model. You gain access to great management expertise. The franchisee or the franchisor, I should say, is very interested in making sure their franchisees are all succeed. Okay. Disadvantages of it are they have some pretty high startup costs. you're typically going to make some kind of payment to the franchisor. I'm sorry, I'm mixing those up. And there might be some management rules and restrictions. Okay, so I'm going to go over a couple of things. This is just to give you an idea how expensive they can be, and this isn't even very up to date, but it gives you an idea of the startup investment for different types of franchises, and they're pretty substantial. They're really quite high, and not all of them, but a lot of them are. And under any circumstance, it's not typically usually going to be able to be done with money you have laying around. You're going to probably have to finance that. I find this particular slide really interesting because it's the same concept there as how much it would take to actually invest to start a top 20 franchise. The most expensive one is, believe it or not, Culver's, and I'd have to dig into that to know exactly why. But typically the startup costs are pretty similar between different franchises. It has a lot to do with locations and things like that would drive that cost. I just love this one because it gives an income statement for kind of a projected estimated financial breakdown of an income statement for McDonald's franchises. And McDonald's costs a whole lot of money to start up, but their sales the average one will generate $2.7 million, gross profit 1.8, give or take. You have a lot of different costs attached to it, and once you subtract all those costs out, your operating income for a year is $154,000 on $2.7 million in sales, and a pretty substantial investment. So, not surprisingly, a lot of franchises succeed because the franchisees own more than one franchise. They have several. Okay, this gives you a rough idea what the capital requirements are for a Subway, which I find kind of interesting. These are all the expenses that you have above and beyond just getting the Subway started. And then the last slide I want to show you is just showing you, again, the startup costs, what its net worth is, and then it shows the failure rate. And this is considerably lower, by the way, than if you did an actual startup business on your own. If you do a startup, one interesting thing you can do is work with business incubators. And there's several of them, but they basically offer a lot of assistance. And I've worked with business incubators before, not as a client, but as somebody that was offering services to clients. And it's a really interesting thing to get into. It's basically all designed to help people start up a business. There are ones in Chicago if you're interested. You can definitely take a look at those. There's several of them, so it's kind of it's an interesting way for you to get the assistance and to help you get your business started up. Reasons for failure? Well, there's a lot of them. Managerial incompetence or inexperience. Yeah, that clearly happens, but I'm going to show you a different slide here. This is why do startups fail, and the first reason is there's no market need for their product. Again, these people are looking at new things. I've had this happen lots. I've talked to a lot of technology companies. People have technology ideas and I ask them specifically, who's your target customer for your new technology? And they kind of think about it and they go, well, everybody could use it. And it's like, that is a recipe for failure. That means if everybody needs it, then probably nobody needs it, okay? But number two is a really, really important one. It's very, very easy to undercapitalize your startup. And what that means is you just don't have enough money to sustain your growth. And what a horrible reason to have the thing not work. And I've seen that happen many, many times. In other words, they were more successful than they anticipated. They did not have the funds to back them up. So if you are serious about going into a business, you need to think long and hard about how you're going to come up with that capital that you're going to need to continue and sustain your growth. If your plans are made to be broken, they aren't always going to be right. And so if you do better than you thought, that could actually be the worst thing that happens to you because you'll simply run out of money. Okay, well, that's it for Chapter 3. That's my micro lecture on it. It's not all that's important. You want to read through the chapter, make sure you take the quiz, make sure you understand all of it, but I just wanted to hit on these key points and help you understand some of it.